Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a This Year in Perfume ranked video. We are all the way to 2007. This is going to be a top 21 with many honorable mentions because there's a lot of samples I have from 2007 that I cannot wait to talk about with you guys. So the first thing is first, it's almost been a week since I put a video out. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but whatever is going around, it's not a big deal. Some people blow it out of proportion whenever people get sick. Sickness just happens, especially when a lot of people come together. So I've been fighting off this illness. I have no clue what it is. I don't think it's COVID, although there were days where I felt like I couldn't smell my fragrance and then it came back. But it could have just been my congestion in my nose. But when you run a fragrance channel like this, smelling is very important. So I didn't want to just come up here with my nose all clogged up. Even though I'm still a little bit congested, I feel much better. 90% of the way there, let's say. I went to the gym and worked out today. Also, this is the very first video from 2024. So, from me to you and your family, I hope you all had an amazing new year. I hope 2024 brings all of your hopes and dreams. I know 2024 is going to be an amazing. That's the way that I look at it. I'm always optimistic, looking at the bright side, and I hope that's the way you look at it as well. But I hope everyone had an amazing new year and may all your hopes and dreams come true in 2024. And seriously, thank you for being here with me in 2023. It's been an honor and a pleasure to do these videos for you guys. So let's get started on 2007. So I looked at some major events in 2007. Not a lot happened actually to discuss. For me personally, 2007 was the year that I graduated college. It was the year that I officially sort of entered the workforce and became like a working drone. The 9 to 5 thing, whatever you want to call it, or in my case, it was kind of more like 6 to 6. But still, it was kind of that turning point for me where I kind of started my current career. And that seems like such a long time ago, and it really was. It makes me feel old just thinking about it. But the iPhone was actually announced by Apple in January of 2007. And I remember buying the very first iPhone and thinking it was the coolest thing in the world, taking it out, and girls were like, man, you can do tricks on that thing, flipping the photos around. It was like mind-blowing. And there was a New Horizon visit to Jupiter, which is kind of cool. There was that terrible Virginia Tech shooting spree in April of 2007. And just a bunch of stuff that really doesn't seem too interesting to me. There was like, they were showing earthquakes in Peru, Pakistani tropical storms. I don't know, maybe I'm looking at the wrong site, but if there's some other popular events from 2007 that you all would love to discuss, leave it in the comments. Oh, the Tesla Roadster was shown off, and I remember one of my neighbors actually buying one back then, thinking it was the weirdest thing. And now, I mean, if he would have taken that money and bought Tesla stock, he probably would have been a million times better than buying the car. Although I'm sure that original Roadster may have appreciated in value as well. That is not financial advice, just a observation, let's say, okay? Because I know Tesla's been on an absolute tear since 2007. But yes, Gordon Brown became the prime minister. There was that Glasgow airport attack. So this gets us back in the mood of what was going on in 2007. I did look up some top 10 movies or just popular movies from 2007, and there actually were some good ones. So not only is it a good year in fragrance, it's also a damn good year in movies. Couple of my favorite movies, There Will Be Blood. That's one of my favorite movies of all time. I think, what's his name? Daniel Day-Lewis. He was absolutely amazing in There Will Be Blood. No Country for Old Men, two of my favorite movies of all time, but also 3:10 to Yuma, which is a very underrated movie, and American Gangster came out in 2007. I remember seeing that in the theater. The Simpsons movie, I remember seeing that in the theater. Superbad, that's hilarious. Zodiac, Into the Wild, Away From Her, I Am Legend, Sweeney Todd, Ratatouille, Juno, The Bourne Ultimatum, Transformers, Michael Clayton, Enchanted, Knocked Up, Across the Universe, Hot Fuzz, Baby Gone, Atonement, Once. Some pretty damn good movies from 2007. I think Hollywood has sort of trended in the same direction as the fragrance industry, which is straight into the side of the mountain. The guy from The Big Lebowski would say, nothing is fucked, the plane has crashed into the mountain. And that's kind of what it feels like for me with Hollywood and with fragrances. But popular songs are just all over the place. Kaiser Chiefs put out Ruby. Lincoln Park put out Shadow of the Day and Bleed It Out, I think, were hits in 2007. The Arctic Monkeys had Brainstorm. The White Stripes had Icky Thump. But Radiohead had 15 Step. But a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing outside of that, it doesn't seem like the biggest year for songs. But if there are some songs you want to give a shout out to, leave it in the comments. So that gets us back in the mood of what was going on in 2007. So we have a lot to discuss in the fragrance world. And here's the thing about 2007 as a year. I think that in fragrance, there are certain years that are just almost like pivotal years, right? 1978 jumps out as one. 1981 jumps out as another. Those two are like extremely important years. 2007, believe it or not, I think is up there with one of the most important years in fragrance history, because that was the year that Tom Ford's brand really kicked off with the private labels. If you're a Tom Ford fan, this video is going to be like, candy to you. There's a bunch of Tom Fords in here from my collection we are going to discuss. And, but also, it's a year that can be a little tricky, because if you go look, also, by the way, I'm using Parfumo. So this is according to Parfumo. So if you see a fragrance that shows 2007 and it's not on the list, that's why it's probably showing a different year in Parfumo. But, when you look at Chanel's, that was when the Eau de Toilette Exclusifs came out as well in 2007. And so I may have, let's say, a version of a fragrance that you may see shown as 2007, but I may have a different version. Like, for example, my bottle of Cuir de Rousse is a great example of that. This is a 1970s bottle of Cuir de Rousse. So if you look up Cuir de Rousse, Chanel, you'll see the Eau de Toilette, but this is the Eau de Cologne. So I'm not including it in this list because this is from decades before. So that kind of thing is also happening as well. So there's a lot of kind of moving parts here. Also, I should mention that two of my best friends in the fragrance community, Eugene and Rich Mitch, have fragrances from 2007, which they consider some of their favorite fragrances of all time. I know Rich Mitch said that the find of the year for him was Myrrh Ardente going back to 2023. That is, I've never spelled Myrrh Ardente. That came out in 2007. And for Eugene, it's Bella Respiro. He loves Bella Respiro, talks about it all the time. I've never spelled it. The Eau de Toilette came out in 2007. So some pivotal fragrances from the year 2007. So let's get started on Scent of the Day. First of all, because today technically is New Year's Day, and I decided to wear a Les Indemodables fragrance, and this is Vanille Havane. And I'll tell you what, I actually reviewed this on the channel, but I reviewed it after only giving it a couple of wears, right? And today I got different things than what I first got when I first wore it, and this is maybe a conversation to have at another time. But a lot of times when you listen to a reviewer, you may think that their nose is broke or whatever it may be, but literally they may smell something now, and if they revisit that fragrance a year from now, they may get different facets, or the fragrance may change. I got a lot more bitter cacao from this today when I wore it than when I wore it early when I got this decant. You can see I put a pretty damn good dent in this 10 mil decant. And so I got a lot more sweetness in the opening originally. This time, I got a lot of that bitter cacao. It almost smelled like anise and cacao. It had that sort of spicy anise cardamom cacao, which did not smell sweet at all to me. It smelled like dark chocolate. And then, of course, that beautiful tobacco comes in with a vanilla that is not too sweet. I think this is a better version of Tobacco Vanille, which is on this list here and pretty high in the list as well. I actually really enjoy Tobacco Vanille for what it is. There's a beautiful Egyptian jasmine note in here which comes out, but it's not too floral. It's just a brilliant fragrance with that cacao and the tobacco. Just, I think, full bottle worthy, but I don't have any full bottles because I got these 10 mil decants off of a friend of Les Indemodables, but probably one of the best niche houses out there. Brilliant for special occasions like today, New Year's Day. Really enjoyed wearing Vanille Havane today. Okay, let's do some honorary mentions and then we'll get into the top 21. So first honorary mention is a Annick Goutal fragrance, and this is the OG version of Ambre Fétiche, a really good amber created by Camille Goutal and Isabelle Doyen. This is frankincense, labdanum, styrax, benzoin, geranium, iris, patchouli, vanilla, and Russian leather. I think this is a fantastic amber. I'm going to try to review it one of these days. It's spicy, it's sticky, it's incensey, it's smoky, it's resinous, And then the iris adds that poshness that you expect from a niche brand like Nique Goutal. This is the vintage version. I don't know what the new version is like since they changed the brand's name to Goutal, but this is absolutely full bottle worthy. If you're a amber fan, Amber Fetiche is a must sniff. Okay, sorry, I'm going to take a sip of water so my throat doesn't go, my voice doesn't go out on you guys halfway through the video. Probably should have brought a backup. Should have brought a Rich Mitch size water to this video. Okay, next on the list is actually a fragrance that I reviewed, but there were so many already to be ranked that I didn't put this in the ranking, but this will probably be somewhere in the bottom mid tier if I had to rank it. This is Atat Libre d'Orange, and this is called Vierges et Toreros, which is basically virgins and toreros, or virgins and bullfighters, which is a fantastic name for a fragrance. And this is created by Antoine Lee and Antoine Maison-Dew. And if you like sort of animalic leather, but in a musky sense, imagine the way that Antoine Lee uses that sort of tuberose note in Dessandres, or I recently reviewed a fragrance called Night Flower by Eris Parfums, and there's an amazing tuberose note in there. He kind of uses the tuberose note in here, very similar. I think Antoine Lee is the master of using tuberose in a way that's different from other normal camphoraceous green, you know, tuberose that can smell a little bit like eucalyptus. His tuberose notes are completely different, but if you're a fan of spicy animalic fragrances, I would check out my review of Atat Libre d'Orange, Vierges et Toreros, discontinued apparently, but a good one. That could easily be a full bottle if money was no issue for me. Okay, next on the list is one that I need to talk about soon because this is an amazing, spicy, smoky incense done in a unique way. This is called Silver Factory by Bond Number 9. And so somebody sent me this Discovery Atomizer. I think it was Armando, but I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. But whoever sent this to me, thank you very much, my friend. This is discontinued as well, unfortunately. They lost the Andy Warhol licenses. They then reissued it as Silver Bond, and then they just discontinued it altogether. Bond Number 9 is not a house that I talk very much about on the channel for obvious reasons, but this is a really good and interesting and diverse incense scent, I would say, because it does open up with lavender, bergamot, and grapefruit. So it has a little bit of that sort of sparkly opening, also with that traditional lavender, but just the way the frankincense plays with the violety iris in here, and there's amber woods and resins in the base, and it really does feel like you're smelling like flickery silver confetti. It almost has this, you know, like you're actually sitting in Andy Warhol's silver factory where he used to do his painting. It's actually a pretty damn good incense fragrance for what it is. Hard to find, discontinued, but I'll review it on the channel soon. That came out in 2007. It was created by Aurélien Guichard. I actually think this is one of his best fragrances. I am not a fan. Not a fan of his work, to be honest with you, but this, and he created a fragrance for Zadig and Voltaire with Nathalie Lorson, who I give credit to Nathalie Lorson for that one just because I'm not an Aurélien Guichard fan, but called This Is Him, and I actually really like This Is Him. That also has a little bit of a smoky sort of side to it, but it's really more like a smoky, peppery sandalwood. This Is Him, but Silver Factory is I think his best scent in my opinion. And then we've got, if this was on the ranking list, this very well may be number 1. It's a true unicorn, impossible to find. I would love a bottle. In fact, if you came to me and said, Ramsey, you can have one bottle from the Tom Ford private blend collection you don't have in your collection, I think this would be it. This is called Mossbrex. And I've just got this little decant that I'm nursing here. Mossbrex is like Tom Ford does Pavarotti, is basically the way that I describe it. Beeswax Absolute, Corsican Rosemary, Honeycomb Note, Hungarian Tarragon, Moroccan Clary Sage, Tuscan Bergamot, Moss, and Patchouli. And it really does smell like that honey patchouli from days gone past, but with a sort of green tint, you know. The Beeswax Absolute and the Honeycomb makes it smell very animalic honey, but it's a definite throwback to the days of Givenchy Gentleman or Pavarotti. Just a brilliant Tom Ford private blend. Stefan Nilsson created that fragrance, by the way. And then we've got a fragrance from 2007 by the house of Olivier d'Urbano, and this is called Black Tourmaline. Another very interesting peppery cuminy incense with this kind of smoked wood thing going on. There's a little bit of oud in here as well, a little bit of leather, but it's mostly a very interesting take on incense. And I think my good friend Eddie sent this little sort of mini to me, if you want to call it that. I think it's 10 mils, but more than enough to get to know the scent. I've worn it as my scent of the day a couple times. I really like this. This is a very good incense, and apparently it's still in production. So Black Tourmaline. Okay, next on the list is, unfortunately, just one of these little lucky scent dabbers, which I hate, from 2007. This is Absinthe by the house of Nasomato, a house that I plan on reviewing a couple in 2024. Pardon is on the list, as is Black Afghano, as is some of his work for his other brand, Orto Parisi. So, but Absinthe is definitely on the list to discuss. Green, spicy, woody, earthy type scent. Excuse me, sorry to cough in your ear. Unfortunately, if I'm going to do the video, that's just what you're going to get from me today. And I had already been about a week, so, you know, if I feel like I could turn on this camera and be like, hi, my name's Ramsey, I'm a fragrance addict, and you guys would completely know what I was talking about, because like not doing these videos for almost a week, like I felt like I needed to do a video, you know what I mean? Like I am such a routine person, and when you take something out of the routine, it kills me. Like I feel like something's off, you know? So doing this video is a necessary, not just for you guys, but for me as well. Okay, couple samples that I could not find, but I know I have floating around somewhere. Nasomato has a fragrance called Hindu Grass, which is discontinued, a little bit of a unicorn. I have a sample of that. I'll do a video on that one of these days. That's from 2007. And also from 2007, Lush put out a fragrance called Breath of God, created by Simon Constantine, which is a very interesting scent. It almost reminds me a little bit of a Bertrand Duchaufour creation because of the way the melon mixes with these traditional notes. You know, Bertrand Duchaufour loved throwing in a little bit of a curveball. Breath of God is actually a pretty good fragrance. I'm not a big fan of Lush fragrances, but they have a couple that are not too shabby, especially in the vintage form. Okay, so let's get started on the actual list. So number 21, and I have to say, there is not a bad fragrance on this list, okay? So even the ones at the back of the list, it's just there are so many bangers in 2007 that some of these had to go towards the end. And of course, the ones that went towards the end are the fresher fragrances. That's just how it goes for me. So number 21 is a fragrance created by Alberto Morias and Francois Demachy. And this is from Acqua di Parma called Colonia Intensa. Now, again, this is not a bad fragrance. In fact, if you came to me and said, Ramsey, I don't want to mess with buying discontinued fragrances or anything like that. I just want to buy a good citrusy, well-built fragrance that sort of has this fresh citrus accord. This would be the one that I would say just go buy the modern version of Colonia Intensa. It's an amazing fragrance. Sicilian lemon, Calabrian bergamot, cardamom, and ginger. And I think they used a little bit of that neroli to add this freshness. Neroli is a flower that sometimes when you smell it, it adds a little bit of this soapy freshness. And if you smelled the original Acqua di Parma Colonia, which came out like 100 years ago, I can't remember exactly when that one came out, but there's a very classic side to this, but they've also modernized it a little bit. They added a little oomph. So if you ever wished you had a cologne that just lasted a little bit longer, but still kept that cologne DNA, this does that. They did add a little bit of leather and benzoin and patchouli, and they kind of strengthen the base a little bit. This probably, even the Intensa version lasts about 6 hours on me. I reapply anyways, but I think this is a amazing fragrance for summer. People around you love it if that's something that's important to you. So yes, in warm climates, Acqua di Parma Colonia Intensa. The only Acqua di Parma full bottle I actually have in my collection. Okay, next on the list, number 20 is a Creed. And I have just enough juice left to do a review of this and then put the bottle into the bottle graveyard. This is Creed Virgin Island Water, and you can see I wore the piss out of this fragrance, mostly because I would do like 10 or 20 sprays when I wore this. And that's really what it's made for. It's a fresh, citrusy fragrance. Luca Turin and Tina Sanchez had maybe one of the greatest lines of all time in one of their books. I can't remember. It's either the 2010 edition or the 2018 version of Perfumes, the guide. But they said with Virgin Island water, Olivier Creed gets in his boat and looks for the most rare lime and coconuts throughout the world. Just absolutely roasted Olivier Creed. And, excuse me, the thing about it is that there is a fragrance out there called Saint Bart, I believe, which does 90% of what this does for 1/20th of the price, right? $500 for this is a very, very steep price. However, I did enjoy wearing it, especially when it was like 110 degrees outside. The prominent notes on this are kind of like this lime, sort of tropical coconutty thing. There's this coconut milk note in here. And there is a little bit of like a pineapple accord and this white musk. So it's basically like this suntan lotion smelling thing. Beautiful for the heat and very fresh, but way, way overpriced, okay? But Creed DNA, you know, if you like that kind of thing, you'll like Virgin Island water. I'm going to get a cough drop, so you guys bear with me. Uno momento. Mostly so I'm not coughing in your ear, or trying not to cough in your ear. So we will try to make this video happen. All right. Okay, next on the list is the very first Tom Ford. And many of you... Actually, wait, that's not true. Let me take a step back. Number 19 on the list is a Jean-Paul Gaultier. And this is created by Francis Kurkdjian, and I actually think this is one of his better creations, okay? This is a floral sweet fragrance from 2007 called Fleur du Male. Discontinued, very hard to find, very expensive. It's a little bit powdery. The notes are petitgrain, orange blossom, neroli, chamomile, basil, and coumarin. And this really feels like a designer version of Reflection Man, which is much higher on the list. Both fragrances came out in the same year, which I'm always interested when fragrance houses do that. When two fragrances come out the exact same year and they seem so close to each other. This feels a little different from Reflection Man in that it doesn't have the jasmine that Reflection Man has. This also has chamomile. Reflection Man doesn't have chamomile. And this sort of has that Francis Kurkdjian, this white musk just explosion thing in the base. Even though it's not listed, if you know his work, you'll get that white musky powdery thing in the base. Some say that this is much too feminine to be a masculine fragrance. It's like a feminine scent marketed towards men, but I absolutely love it. I think it's an amazing fragrance. There's something, it's almost so clean it's dirty, if that makes sense. It almost looks like the Koros advertisements a little bit with that, you know, with the white Koros sort of statues from Greece, and or Eros statues, whatever they're actually called. But Fleur du Male is a very interesting creation, especially if you know Francis Kurkdjian's work. This is a little bit off the beaten path, and it's different. And I think it's one of the best Jean-Paul Gaultier flankers, but be prepared. I mean, it's definitely going to be floral. And so if that's not your thing, maybe stay away from Fleur du Male. Okay, now we're on to our first Tom Ford at number 18. And you guys may be shocked that this is here, but I think this is here because of where I'm at in my journey. So if you look up 2007 on Parfumo, this is the very first fragrance, meaning it's the most popular fragrance from the whole year, right? And this is Oud Wood. And you can see I've basically finished this bottle. I've got about as much left of that as I have Virgin Island water. And I wore this. This was the scent I wore when my daughter was born. I mean, I've got amazing memories in Oud Wood. And the thing about Oud Wood is that it's kind of like I've moved on from this scent profile, if that makes sense. I've discovered how amazing real oud is, and that's thanks to people like Bortnikov, Russian Adam, especially Russian Adam from Arige Ladore, who's come on the channel 4 or 5 times. There's some amazing interviews with him. Of course, smelling things like Ensar Oud's work, Rising Phoenix, Sultan Pasha's work, who he was on the channel very recently under interviews. You'll see all the interviews if you're new to the channel. So I think I've kind of moved on from the scent profile. However, that being said, the cardamom rosewood combination in here, I absolutely love. I still think this is a very good fragrance. I just, I wish they created this scent profile with sort of, you know, a oud accord that I've come to fall in love with from people like Russian Adam and Bortnikov and that kind of thing, right? I want more of the funk now. I've just moved on past this, if that makes sense. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that I don't even enjoy wearing this, because I do enjoy wearing oud wood, but now when it comes to oud, I reach for things that are more in the artisanal space, if that makes sense. So that's why this is here, but this was an absolute revelation. This is kind of one of those fragrances that it was so influential that after this, everyone who was anyone had an oud fragrance. And so Tom Ford kind of took his work with M7 by YSL in 2002 and took the next step with oud wood. And what's crazy is there are some similarities with M7. If you ever smelled M7, the way that the oud and amber and spices kind of play together off of each other, you'll get similarities of that in oud wood. So I like oud wood, but I really feel like it's served its purpose, and I've kind of moved past it in my journey, if that makes sense. Okay, next on the list is a Guerlain at number 17, and this is probably one of the best vanilla scents out there. So it's hard for me to put it here at number 17, but I have to, because for me, anything vanilla, I always go to Shalimar. Like, Shalimar is my vanilla love of all time. And so even though I really love this scent, it always falls short. And this is Spiritueuse Double Vanille. Now, rumor is this is discontinued or being discontinued. I don't know if that's true or not. Parfumo shows it's still in production. But if you look at the name, Spiritueuse, right? It literally feels like it's a spirit. It's a drink. There's something boozy about this. It's like a rum vanilla, somewhat smoky, spicy, oriental take on vanilla. And this smells absolutely amazing on a sexy woman. Like, if you're a powerful woman and you have presence, if you have, you know, if you're kind of one of those women where when you walk in the room, everyone looks at you, this is an amazing fragrance for someone like you. I still love wearing it. I don't think it's just a boring vanilla scent, though, like some people have said. I disagree with that intently. I think there's a lot more going on with this. One of Jean-Paul Guerlain's last creations. This came out in 2007. It is sweet, but I like the way that they did the sweetness here. So yes, no one does vanilla like Guerlain. I mean, they're the masters of vanilla. So Spiritueuse Double Vanille at number 16. Number 15, sorry, number 17. Number 16, so Spiritueuse Double Vanille was 17. 16 is staying with Guerlain, Vetiver Extreme. I think Vetiver Extreme borrowed a lot from Frederic Malle's Vetiver Extraordinaire. Excuse me, sorry to have to do that in your ear. Very green, spicy, lots of like peppery nutmeg in here. It feels like they have removed that tobacco note. So if you don't like the old school tobacco in the original Vetiver, which I actually love, that's one of my favorite parts of the fragrance, check this one out. This is like a modernized Vetiver by Guerlain, the greatest Vetiver of all time. But yeah, it definitely has touches of Vetiver Extraordinaire by Frederic Malle, which came out a couple years before Vetiver Extreme. Okay. Next on the list is a Lancome fragrance, one of the handful of Lancome fragrances I have in my collection. This is called Cuir de Lancome. Now, this was actually marketed towards women, but Cuir de Lancome is an amazing leather. It is slightly floral, okay? And it's got some similarities to vintage, sort of, I would say, floral, leathery fragrances from the past, right? There is a Caron fragrance, which I can never remember the name, but there's an old school Caron fragrance, which has been on my Tabac Blanc. It's been on my wish list forever. I'd love a vintage bottle of Tabac Blanc. This is supposed to smell very similar to Tabac Blanc. It's got that leathery, floral, styraxy, waxy leather. The ylang ylang and the jasmine and the hawthorn make the floral element smell pretty white, like you've ever heard someone describe, sorry, the the leather profile of like a woman's handbag as a white leather bag. Hawthorne always does that imagery to me. And you'll get that in here, but you'll also get these very thick, pudgy, as I've been saying lately, very thick, pudgy sort of benzoin notes that make it smell very thick and gloopy without being sweet. You know, leathery without being just full-on, full-grain leather in your face. This is not full-grain leather. This is more of a softer, waxy leather, if that makes sense. It is discontinued, but you can still find bottles floating around for a respectable price. Cuir de Lancome, I'm very impressed with. I will review this one of these days. If you're a leather fan, and actually, if you can imagine sort of the way that the leather's done in this little bad boy right here, Cuir Canage by Dior, there are some similarities. I'm not saying it's a clone, but there definitely are some similarities. If you like that irisy, leather, purpley, but just imagine much more amped up florals in Cuir de Lancome, I would highly advise you to check that out while bottles are still relatively cheap. Okay, next on the list, we have a Gucci at number 14. One of my favorite tea scents of all time, period. And this is Gucci Pour Homme 2, or Gucci Pour Homme 2, if you'd prefer. This is discontinued, created by Karine Dubreuil Serini, probably her best work. This opens up with this sort of airy, ozonic violet leaf, very spicy and fresh. The black tea note in here is just brilliant. Let me spray this a little bit. It's been a little bit since I've had a chance to smell this bad boy. Let me spray Gucci Pour Homme too. Gucci Pour Homme Dirt. Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah. Man, I can already smell it. Yes. Oh, it's so good. That spicy, airy freshness with kind of the... If you like fresh tobacco, that's the other thing. If you're a fan of fresh tobacco, so if you're a fan of things like Dolce & Gabbana Pour Homme, the OG from 1994, this doesn't smell like that, but it has this fresh tobacco mixed with tea and olive wood, which is a very unique note. But it also has this cinnamon. So what makes this fragrance so special to me is it's this contrast between this sort of ozonic, airy, fresh violet leaf. Not the violet leaf like in Fahrenheit where you get this gasoline-like opening. This is like more of a fresh, you know, it feels like there's a lot of space between the notes originally, but then what comes forward are these heavier notes. So even though it seems airy and fresh, it does this trick where cinnamon and sort of this spicy, woody thing just kind of, it's like an enveloping freshness, if that makes sense. You know how there are some cinnamon fragrances that have tobacco and myrrh that just feel like heavy and suffocating? This one feels airy and free. I mean, you know, it feels like you're... It feels like you're, you know, you're just walking throughout the... You're wearing like a bathing suit and a t-shirt, no undershirt, and you're just, you know, free. You're just kind of walking through the mall. You don't have a jacket and a tie on and a suit, and you're not like all choking. You know, there's something that's very freeing about this scent. And I absolutely love it. I love the tea. I love the tobacco. I love the myrrh. And I love how the violet leaf bergamot opening just adds this airiness to an otherwise pretty, what you would consider to be, there are some very heavy notes in here with the tea, cinnamon, pimento, tobacco, myrrh, which can come across as very resinous and warm. That contrast of spicy with the warm. I'm getting the tobacco now. Beautiful. I absolutely love that. Okay. Number 13. So this was hard for me. Number 14 and number 13, I went back and forth on. Actually, the Gucci was almost number 14, and then I changed it last minute. I could easily go back and forth on these two. But number 13 for me is Tom Ford for Men. And the reason that it's so hard for me between these two is that I think they kind of play in the same sandbox in one sense. in that they both kind of do the same thing. They both play with this idea of freshness, but contrasted with much heavier notes. So if you've ever smelled Tom Ford for Men, which was the OG sort of flagship fragrance for men, when Tom Ford, the brand, came out, it was rumored that Michael Jackson wore this towards the end of his life, even though he died before this came out. Some people say he got early access to bottles. I don't know if that's true or not. But what's interesting about Tom Ford for Men is that it also has notes like tobacco, you know, heavier notes like tobacco. There's pepper, there's cypriol, which cypriol adds this earthy element. Many oud fragrances have cypriol nowadays. Many of the oud fragrances from brands like Gucci or Tom Ford would have a cypriol note from what I smell. And many people compare this more to Vera Wang for Men. I've never smelled Vera Wang for Men, but I can tell you that this does something very similar. This woody, spicy, citrusy, sort of, this uses violet instead of violet leaf. But again, if you like a fresh tobacco, okay, there's some vetiver in the base, there's leatherwood, there's amber, oak moss, cedar, patchouli, Tunisian orange blossom absolute, Moroccan grapefruit blossom. You can see these fresher notes mixed with heavier notes like the tobacco, amber, cedar, cypriol. This does a very similar thing. I love both of these. Yeah, I mean, Gucci Pour Homme 2 and Tom Ford for Men, they go in different directions, but they play, they're playing the same game, if that makes sense. One's playing the game over here, one's playing the game over there, but they're both playing the game parallel. So beautiful. Both are discontinued, sadly. And number 12 for another discontinued fragrance, just to, you know, kick us frag heads in the nuts even further, especially collectors, because prices on these discontinued fragrances skyrocket as soon as they get discontinued. This is Narcisco Rodriguez for Him from 2007. Again, a Francis Kirkjohn creation, and again, probably one of his most creative creations. He does use that musk accord that you're not going to get away from it. You'll definitely get the muskiness in here, but you know, this really does feel like you're smelling, there's this abstract concrete rain hitting the concrete, this petrichor-like note. It's violet, lavender, pink pepper, musk, patchouli, and amber. And the patchouli is pretty heavy here. There is a, sorry, there's a fragrance from Tom Ford that came out in, oh God, I actually really like this. Really, really like that. Some say it's a wet concrete. Some say it's melancholic smelling, like looking out the window on a rainy day. But for a designer, Narcisco Rodriguez for Him is absolutely amazing. It's an amazing rainy day scent. This and Encre Noire are two amazing rainy day scents. Just brilliant. And you do get a little bit of that floral vibe from the violet, but mostly you get a lot of this earthy. The musk does make it slightly animalic, excuse me, but the patchouli adds this heft, you know? And there's a fragrance by Tom Ford, and it got issued and then it got discontinued almost immediately. And gosh, I wish I could think of the name real quick to compare. I think it's the closest thing I've ever smelled to Narcisco Rodriguez for Him. It's called Noir Anthracite from 2017. I'll review that fragrance one of these days as well. That is also discontinued. I think I like that even more because it kind of takes that idea and it moves it to the next level. It adds things like galbanum and Sichuan pepper and ginger and Macassar woods and I think it takes it to the next level. But I'm a big fan of Noir Anthracite and Narcisco Rodriguez for Him. Okay. Next on the list is one of the most creative modern fougères I've ever come across. This is number 11 on the list. It is Fougere Bengale from Parfum d'Empire. Very creative niche house. I really love the work that Marc-Antoine Corticciatto is doing. Very spicy Fougere. Also has a very interesting tea note in here and tobacco. So going back to Gucci Pour Homme too. But this takes it kind of to another level because I like how Marc-Antoine Cortacciatto uses these animalic notes. You know, it's almost like this is perfume for perfume lovers, in my opinion. And if you're a Fougere lover, this is a pretty special one. It's, I mean, instantly, it almost, you know, it almost has like it almost has the feeling of everlasting flower in the opening. Like there's this sort of crunchy brown cumin-like smell, but that very quickly goes away, and it's replaced with a beautiful scratchy lavender and Assam tea. Okay, and I mean the Assam tea, you could almost be forgiven to think maybe there's an oud note in here, but it's the tea and tobacco with this hay-like feel, and hay goes with tobacco brilliantly. Hay, tobacco, animalic notes, oak moss, patchouli, tonka, and vanilla. Just a brilliant Fougere. I mean, just a up and down, classically proper Fougere, but done with a modern twist. That's what niche should be. Shout out to Parfum d'Empire for that one. I'll review that one of these days. And then, top 10. Number 10, a fragrance that I don't need to spray. Number 1, I don't have very much juice. And number 2, I know this fragrance like the back of my hand. This is called Rousse by Serge Lutens. This is the vintage Palais Royale bottle. Rousse is one of my favorite cinnamon notes ever. I think this is one of the best cinnamon notes in all of perfume. Like if you said, Ramsey, quick, name one cinnamon fragrance that just absolutely kills it. Rousse. No doubt about it. Sorry to have to keep doing that in your ear. Cedarwood, nutmeg, amber, mandarin orange, but this is really like red hot, spicy cinnamon, brilliantly done, like only Christopher Sheldrake can do. Some say it has a little bit of a gourmand feel because of that red hot candy cinnamon note in here, but it's just so well executed. It doesn't smell cheap. Doesn't smell like it's too try hard or anything like that. I mean, it's just brilliant perfume. So I'll review Rousse one of these days. And then number 9, now we're back to Tom Ford. This is Tom Ford Extreme. Now, Extreme gets the nod over the OG for men just more because of my taste. I think both are, you could make cases for both, okay? You know, if you like the airier, cleaner type fragrances where Tom Ford for men sort of, yeah, I mean, if you're not a fan of heavier scents, I could easily see you saying you're crazy going for the Extreme. For me, personally, and probably for most frag heads, this is also discontinued, by the way, which is unbelievable. And shout out to, gosh, who sent me this? Was it A2? I'm sorry, whoever sent this to me, I apologize. I can't remember who. But God, you know who did this? This is Pierre Negrin and Claude Durr. Claude Durr does many of the scents for George Zaharoff, okay? But Pierre Negrin has done some of my favorite Amouage fragrances of all time. And the creativity in here, you know, I mean, I don't want to say it could be an Amouage, but if he did something like this for Amouage, I wouldn't bat an eye. In 2007, this is a very creative fragrance. There's so many notes going on. There's cinnamon, basil, cardamom, cistus, coriander, lemon, and chamomile, plum, sandalwood, cedarwood, violet, figs, saffron, and thyme, patchouli, truffle, one of my favorite truffle fragrances I've ever smelled, balsam fir, frankincense, leather, vanilla, vetiver, caramel, and rum. I mean, it has almost a little bit of everything, and yet it mixes it all together brilliantly. It all comes together like a beautiful, rich story. It's just amazing. I mean, just an amazing fragrance, especially for colder days probably, but I have no problem wearing it. I would wear this in the heat. I don't care. I mean, especially for someone like me who works indoors. I mean, you're in air conditioning, even if it's 100 outside, who cares? I mean, what are you going to walk from your car to the door for 30 seconds? So yes, that's, but probably it's mostly a winter fragrance if you're a wear by season kind of guy. Okay. Next on the list, we have number 8, And number 8, we're staying with Tom Ford. This is Tobacco Vanille. So obviously, Tobacco Vanille, kind of like Oud Wood, was a little bit of a revelation. Tobacco Vanille is sort of a sweet, spicy tobacco. There's dried fruits in here, which actually, I think, like I said, Vanille Havane does this style of fragrance better, in my opinion. But there is a place for this. I mean, this is definitely sweeter. There's definitely more of that resinous, gloopy Tonka thing in here. And there's definitely more amped up vanilla in here. But I still like it. You would think I would hate this fragrance as someone who doesn't like sweet fragrances. It has that cacao note that Vanille Havane has as well. But the quality of the ingredients here blow this out of the water, which you wouldn't think that when 50 mils of Tom Ford now sells for over $300, which is absolutely insane, right? You wouldn't think that they would allow a house like this to blow them out of the water, but they're selling so many bottles compared to Les Indemodables, which is more, I think, perfume for people like us, like I was saying about Parfum d'Empire, that I think they just don't care. I mean, Tom Ford doesn't care that there's a house doing it better, because they have the advantage in sales 1,000,000 to 1 because of Estee Lauder and their reach. And so this is a Olivier Guillotine creation. Sorry for butchering his name, but I actually like Tobacco Vanille. You can see I've got the little baby bottle. Thank you to my perfume god person for giving me a very fair deal on this, because I no way would I ever pay retail, but I do enjoy it for what it is. Okay. Let's take a, let's water the ram. Smelling all those strips made my nose like clog right back up. Okay, next on the list we have number 7. Number 7 is Reflection Man by Amouage. You can see the dent I put in this. I recently did a comparison video between Reflection Man, the OG from 2007, and Reflection 45, the new exceptional extrait. And Reflection Man is probably one of my favorite jasmines of all time. This beautiful masculine powdery jasmine with bitter orange leaf, red pepper, rosemary. The rosemary keeps it traditionally masculine, but I could easily see a woman wearing this. It does have a little bit of a cilantro feel. Someone once said that, and I can't get it out of my head. Neroli, jasmine, iris, ylang ylang. The florals are definitely there, but it dries down to a beautiful sandalwood, Haitian vetiver, Virginia cedar, and patchouli. Love Reflection Man. Never smelled the new versions with the name on the front, but needless to say, I'm a fan. Look at the dent. When you have when you've got a collection like mine, that is a huge dent. So yes, Reflection Man at number 7. Number 6, one of my favorite styles of perfume. This and Creed's, Oud Wood share some similarities. This is French Lover, if you prefer, what they release in America, which is called Bois de Rage. I guess they think it sounds fancier in French. I don't know. But Bois de Rage, or French Lover, if you prefer, is a creation by Pierre Bourdon. And Pierre Bourdon is one of the greatest perfumers of all time in history. Go read the book, The Ghost Perfumer, if you've never read it. An amazing tale of how he ghost perfumed many of the creeds, according to this author. But this is galbanum, pimento, Florentine iris, angelica, vetiver, cedar, frankincense, musk, and patchouli. And I think it's just that sort of angelica, galbanum, cedar, frankincense combination that reminds you of Royal Oud. If you've smelled Creed's Royal Oud, you'll definitely get it in here. But this is like a greener, darker, bitter, more bitter take on it. God, I love galbanum and angelica. When you combine those two notes together, something magical happens for me. And then you add the beautiful Florentine iris, the woody notes, the cedar. I mean, it's literally like being in a forest. It's so realistic. And the name, I don't know. I mean, French Lover, I think it's a good name, but you know, most people when they see that, they're thinking of like Pepe Le Pew, with the rose in his mouth, getting down on one knee, kissing the girl's feet. This is more This is more aloof to me. I mean, this is more, you know, maybe trying to see some intricacy in a painting from hundreds of years ago. You're standing at the art museum. You know, it's that level of detail and knowledge. And, but there's something just brilliant, beautiful, and also very outdoors. Like if you want to be connected to the outdoors, this is a beautiful fragrance for that. Lovely for spring. Love French Lover. God, that green sort of woody spiciness is out of this world. Okay, next on the list we have an Amouage at number 5, and it is Jubilation 25 for Women. And Jubilation 25 for Women is a fragrance that I have reviewed on the channel, but I did it off of a sample. You can go check it out, but I love the sample so much I got myself a bottle. This is a tester bottle or a, you know, brand. Maybe they sent I don't know, maybe they sent these to press but it does have Jubilation on the bottom. This is back when Amouage was owned by the Sultanate of Oman. Jubilation 25 for Women is just an amazing chypre. It's created by Lukas Swiezak. I think it's Lukas Swiezak's best work, even though he also created Reflection Man. I think this is obviously better. It's why I ranked it a couple spots higher. But this is his best work, in my opinion. Jubilation 25 for Women is just an amazing chypre. Some people compare it to Diaghilev. It definitely has some of that sexual tension of Diaghilev. There's some cumin in here, and the cumin's not listed for whatever reason, but there's a big cumin note. But it plays beautifully with this sort of green, anise-like tarragon, sharp lemon, and then that traditional Amouage rose ylang ylang combo, which if you smelled some of their fragrances from the past, you'll definitely pick up that traditional Amouage floral accord with Davana, frankincense, labdanum, Turkish rose, Otto Absolute, and it does smell natural and beautiful. Myrrh, it is very resinous and spicy. It's like an oriental chypre, if that makes sense. You know, there's definitely oriental touches, but this is a proper chypre as well. Musk, vetiver, patchouli, and amber. A brilliant fragrance. And even though it's marketed towards women, do not let that stop you guys. In my opinion, test some of these Amouages marketed towards women. They are absolutely beautiful. Okay, number 4. Number 4 is probably one of the only ambers for me that can compete with Serge Lutens' Ambre Sultan, which I think is the greatest spicy amber ever created. I love Ambre Sultan. I think it's just up and down classically perfect. There's no way to improve on Ambre Sultan, but damn it, this gets fucking close. Not fucking fabulous, but fucking close. This is Amber Absolute. And Amber Absolute is discontinued, impossible to find. But, oh man, you know, it's got a little bit of that Sahara Noir, tobacco oud, labdanum amber thing going. And I love the accord that they created. Christophe Laudamiel created Amber Absolute. And I think he just created something amazing, amazingly special. It's smoky, it's deep, it's dark, it's rich, it's heady, it's balsamic, it's in your face amber. I mean, this is straight up and, I mean, you will not be able to hide wearing this fragrance. It is heavy and thick and rich, and definitely you're going to get a lot of the labdanum, which I love. I love ambers with a lot of labdanum present. I'm a huge fan of that labdanum note. I think labdanum is one of the most beautiful notes in perfumery. I think it can be a perfume on its own. It's so deep and complex. It can be leathery. It can be sticky and ambery. It can be animalic. It can just, it's so many aspects to labdanum. And you kind of get them all in here. So what a fragrance Amber Absolute worked out to be. And you know, one of the ways to tell the older Tom Fords is if the batch code is written in gold. They used to write them in gold on the older bottles. The newer ones are actually in white. So that's one way to tell older Tom Ford bottles. But what a fragrance Amber Absolute is. In my opinion, maybe one of the only contenders for the crown to fight Ambre Sultan head to head. Number 3, and you guys may be about to fall out of your chair here, but there's a Xerjoff at number 3. It's the only Xerjoff I have a full bottle of, but it's actually, I think, one of my favorite leather fragrances of all time. I mean, it is so good. I love this fragrance, but I do have a vintage older version. This is a refill bottle. They don't make these anymore, but I wanted the juice, and this was cheaper than getting the full fancy presentation, so this is what I got. This is called Xerjoff Homme. And Homme is a creation by Jacques Flory. And this is bergamot, ginger, grapefruit, lemon, caraway, orange, tarragon, mandarin orange, leather, iris, lavender, clove, rose, ylang ylang, birch, cedar, musk, vetiver, ambergris, sandalwood, and vanilla. And let me just tell you what this is, because that note listing means nothing to you. Okay, this is a niche take on Caniche 10. Okay, now Caniche 10 is a good fragrance in and of itself. This is the modern. I want a vintage with the writing all on the inside. It's been on my list forever, but this, I think in this version, this is a better fragrance than this. I'm guessing the vintage will be a better fragrance than both of these of Caniche 10. But I mean, this is a spicy, leathery, smoky. I mean, when I said bold with Amber Absolute, you could absolutely use that with Homme. It's bold and in your face, and there's a little bit of Etros Goma in here as well. So, you know, some of my favorite leathers of all time. Etros Goma, Caniche 10. Imagine like a niche version in a Xerjoff bottle, which it has no right being here. But damn it, you know, they created a good fragrance. I have to overlook my hate of Xerjoff to talk good about this fragrance. And look how high I ranked it. I love this juice. Like, this is me in a bottle. I mean, literally, these type of leather fragrances speak to me. I would wear these all the time if I didn't have a channel and I wanted to talk about a shitload of perfume with you guys. This is the kind of stuff I would wear over and over and over and over again, especially October, November, December, January, February, March. Perfect for these type of perfumes. But if you're a leather fan, get your nose on Homme. Okay, top two. So number two is probably the best sandalwood fragrance you can buy without going and getting like real sandalwood oil, right? Without bringing in stuff like Santal Galore by Arise Ladore, which is my favorite sandalwood fragrance. Obviously, I know Ensar has some amazing sandalwoods. I put some real sandalwood on my skin just within the last week or so, right before my nose just went, and I couldn't smell anything. I put some amazing real sandalwood from Russian Adam. He sent me some different little versions of sandalwood, and I put this Indonesian sandalwood on my skin. It was just so heartbreakingly beautiful. Sandalwood is such a contemplative, relaxing, beautiful note, and this fragrance captures that. This is the 2007 Eau de Toilette version of Bois d'Azil. And so you can see the Eau de Toilette, and you can see the air that has gotten in this bottle. And this has opened up, oh my God, I mean, Bois d'Azil is known as a quiet fragrance, but I don't think it's quiet at all. I can smell this all day on me. I mean, it just doesn't project super far. These Eau de Toilettes are discontinued. Now they're in Eau de Parfum, which some people say it's even quieter, which is crazy because you'd think the Eau de Parfum would be stronger. But they use New Caledonian sandalwood in this, okay? And, you know, it's not your grandmother's Mysore sandalwood that we all know and love, but it's a very well done sandalwood. I mean, Chanel does not make bad products, first of all. They don't do bad perfume. But what they've done here is created this lovely, woody, powdery, like if you were going to go meet, let's say you were going to go meet somebody higher than you, like you were going to go meet the CEO of your company or something, right? And you wanted to wear something elegant, but you didn't want to outshine him. You didn't want to wear something like Derby, where you're going to stamp your authority all over him, right? You want to wear something that is beautiful and elegant, but is saying, hey, I understand you're the boss, right? I'm not trying to take your job, or at least not yet, but, you know, I want to wear something elegant and proper. This is what I would go for. This is so, this is like bourgeoisie to me. This is like upper crust. This is high society. This is, you know, this is having money in the bank without having to flaunt it. This is old money. This is that kind of vibe to me. But this also does such a great job of capturing the essence of that sandalwood note and mixing it with this beautiful Chanel. It almost feels like you get a little bit of a Chanel like sparkle when you spray. And then it feels like you're smelling the whole image of the tree. I've described it before, but imagine you're smelling not just the sandalwood itself, but you're smelling the little red flowers that grow off of the sandalwood tree. You're smelling a little bit of the earthiness, you know, a little bit of the spiciness. And the floral note in here is ylang ylang. And it is a brilliant ylang ylang note. It's a fantastic ylang ylang. It's just so elegant and proper and dressed up without being without shouting, without screaming, without, you know, this is a high-class fragrance to me. Okay, and that leaves number one. So I had to do this as a leather lover. I mean, there's so many amazing fragrances, but for me, Tuscan Leather at number one, and rightly so, because this fragrance changed a generation. I mean, this fragrance to me, one of the most influential fragrances. When you have people like Drake rapping about Tuscan Leather, you know that it was an absolute hit. It created so many clones, so many copies, so many people try. I mean, Clive Christian created a fragrance called C for Men, which smells almost exactly like this, like an amped up version of Tuscan Leather in a $600 bottle or whatever the hell Clive Christian was selling theirs for. This is raspberry, saffron, thyme, frankincense, jasmine, leather, black suede, amber, and woods. There's definitely a smokiness to it. This is created by Jacques Cavalier and Harry Fremont. And, you know, if you've smelled some of the heavier fragrances Jacques Cavalier has been trying to create for Louis Vuitton and Bulgari and stuff like that, right? You can almost draw a direct line back to this. You know, there's definitely some similarities to where I think he's constantly trying to recreate this in a different way with ouds and stuff like that. But this is, to me, you know, this is one of those game changers. That's why I said 2007 is a year where it's kind of like one of those iconic years. So much changed in 2007 because of the fragrances that we are talking about today. So many fragrances were, it's like the Beatles influencing bands decades later, right? That's what Tuscan Leather is to me. I think Tuscan Leather is one of those fragrances that it's like a bomb went off and that area just cannot be inhabited again, you know, for a long time, because this just changed everything, right? And I love the saffron. It adds, you know, the way that they did that saffron raspberry opening adds a little bit of a Middle Eastern feel without being a Middle Eastern fragrance to me, if that makes sense. And of course, ombre leather has touches of Tuscan Leather in it as well. But I think Tuscan Leather is like the leather king from Tom Ford, right? This is the leather king. And there's this bad boy vibe about this. I mean, there's this leather jacket, and this is the way I envision Tuscan Leather. It feels like you're in a pool hall. It's a smoke-filled pool hall. It's dingy. It's grimy. The lighting isn't good, right? People are smoking cigarettes all around you. The couch has cigarette burns in it. You've got your leather jacket on. It's just one of those nights, right? You're on your fifth beer. You're with your buddies. You're playing pool. You know, you're out. Maybe you rode your motorcycle there. That's the vibe, right? It really is this fragrance has a smoky, ashy quality to it, and I love it. I love Tuscan Leather. I'll try to review it one of these days, but yeah, that's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one for sure. So Tuscan Leather, and I don't even have an older bottle. I mean, I mentioned earlier about the gold. I've got a white writing AC6, whatever the hell that is, probably 17, 18. I forgot what year this was, but you know, it's not like a true deep vintage from 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11. No, this is a newer bottle, and it still is absolute, not super new, but newer, and it's absolutely beast mode. This thing, I mean, I can smell it for a day. It goes on forever. So leathery, smoky, ashy, that raspberry, saffron, thyme, smoky, frankincense, suede, and leather. Just a brilliant creation by Harry Fremont. Probably one of his best creations. Harry Fremont and Jacques Cavalier. So yes, Tuscan Leather number one. That's my 2007 list. Sorry I've been away for a week. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad my voice made it all the way through. Happy New Year to everyone. Like I said, wishing you all the best from me and my family to yours. And I hope, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any, obviously 2007 is going to have fragrances that I would love to add to the collection, especially with it being the Tom Ford year. So there's so many. I'd love to add Noir de Noir. You know, I would love to add Purple Patchouli. You know, there's so many from 2007 that first came out that are not on this list. Bois Rouge, Black Violet. I mean, the list goes on from 2007. that are just long gone, impossible to find fragrances. And so they're on the never-ending to sniff list, wish list, whatever you want to call it. But yes, if there's some from 2007 that you think I should put on the wish list or I should try to smell, do let me know. Leave a comment. Let me know what your favorites are from 2007. Thank you for being here with me all the way from, a couple years ago when the channel first got founded. It got founded right before Christmas 2021. So we're just past the 2-year mark. So thank you to everyone who has been with me for these last couple years. We did just pass 1 million views, which I don't even know how to look that up. Someone told me about it and I actually had to click around forever until I found it. And sure enough, we're actually way over 1 million now. But we did just in the last month or so pass that 1 million view mark on the channel, which is unbelievable to me. So yes, we are steadily growing. Thank you for being a part of it. Hope to see your faces in the comments as always. Glad to be back. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.